Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker Podcast, bringing you fun and soulful interviews with spiritual teachers aimed at tuning you in and lighting you up. You can access all episodes of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos and interviews all about finding and following your life purpose. My name is George Lizos. I'm a spiritual teacher, intuitive, the author of Be the Guru and the #1 best-selling Lightworkers Gotta Work. And today I have with me Nichol Altman. Nichol is a Reiki master, shamanic practitioner, past life regressionist, light language channel, fitness instructor, host of the Soulfully Awakened podcast, and a sacred alignment and embodiment guide. Nichol uses her gifts to help others melt back into self so that they can remember their deep, sacred, wild, and ancient gifts, helping to drop you layers deep into self and reclaiming all aspects of sovereignty. Nichol, welcome to the Lit Up Lightworker Podcast.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here today, George.
It is so great to have you on the podcast to chat all about plant medicine, one of my favorite topics to talk about. But before we dive into it, I want to hear about your spiritual path, specifically as it pertains to plant medicine, shamanic journeys. How did you get started?
So about 3 years ago, a lot of things started to cross my path. At first, it was a book about shamanism, and I started to kind of read that. And once I started to read that, I started to have a lot of memories start to unlock, and just it felt like something that I've done for many, many years. And at that point, I'd been helping people with past life regression. So I know anytime you feel really connected to either a culture or a modality or plants or a time and place, that is probably a past life connection. So I really started to explore that. And through exploring the book and reading it, I started to really open myself up to nature. I've always been very into nature and the elements. I've always been one who loves to sit outside and earth and be with the trees. And so when I was reading this book, I remember laying on my hammock and I was reading a chapter about animal totems and spirit guides. And so I was like, okay, if I'm supposed to pursue this path of shamanism, it feels really, really relevant and resonant for me. I need the universe to give me a sign. And I was like, okay, well, I'll denote the sign. I would like to see a hawk. Felt really connected to hawks. And I'm laying there on my hammock and I'm reading, and I put the book down on my lap and I look up, and maybe a foot above my head, a hawk swoops. And so I was like, okay, I'm meant to do this. And I was like, okay, so I'm completely open to this path. And once I opened myself up to that path, that's how I met Amy. And we just started to talk about shamanism. At that point, I had no idea that she'd been doing shamanism for almost 20 years. I actually reached out to her about doing, being a medical intuitive, since I'd been studying energy work for about 7 to 8 years up to that point. And she actually approached me and said, actually, I wanted to start getting back into shamanism on an apprentice. Would you be interested in that? So everything really aligned. And that's the way I always tell people, everything that I'm doing on my path, I didn't forcefully go seek it out. It's something came across my path. I opened up my perception. I really just opened and allowed and surrendered and like, okay, like if this is my path, I'm going to surrender to this path. And everything has just kind of lined up. That's like same thing with energy work, doing shamanism, past life regression. These aren't things that I actively seeked. It's like a little seed was planted. I paid attention to it and I was like, I approach everything with curiosity, I think. And so when I approach it like that, I'm just like, okay, like, let's see where this takes me. And that's kind of how my path of shamanism really started. And same thing with Reiki. It's like a little seed was planted and I was like, this is interesting. Why am I thinking of this? And I just started to follow the breadcrumbs. And that's really how my whole path has really unfolded. And I know for people who maybe, aren't into it as far as I am, or wherever you are, like sometimes when you tell people that, it may sound like cheesy or weird to be like, well, it found me. But for me, everything in my life has found me, but it's with me showing up with that intentional aligned action, and like actually taking the breadcrumb and being like, oh, that's interesting. What's this? And keep following it along my path. And so for me, it's been a very beautiful, authentic unraveling and unfolding on my path that's brought me to where I am today.
I love your story, and it is so relevant with so many people trying to find their life purpose, where they feel like, oh, I don't know what my life purpose is. What do I do? And what you've just demonstrated with your story is that all you did was you were curious about stuff. And then once you found something that called you, you gave it some attention, and then the universe comes in to support you. And I know because I'm also a past life regressionist, when I'm regressing people, I know that what they're being drawn to, and not just during the regression, but also their interests, the kind of movies and TV series we watch, and our hobbies and our fashion style. There are clues in all of those areas as to what our life purpose is. It's like the whole universe is conspiring to help us find it and follow it. And it's just a matter of us just showing up and doing the work. And you mentioned Amy Lee Mercury. For people watching right now wondering who this Amy is, Amy Lee Mercury, she has been on my podcast as well. Her episode may or may not be out by the time this episode airs, but we talked about goddesses, about the divine feminine. You're gonna love her energy. And of course, I'm gonna place Amy's links as well in the description below so you can check them out. But Nichol, let's dive into plant medicine right now. For people watching who don't know what plant medicine is, what is it?
Plant medicine is essentially working with the actual life force of the plant, like the bloodline of the plant or the consciousness of the plant. So that's the way that I like to look at it. Like, it doesn't have to be, when we think about plant medicine, we think about like peyote or ayahuasca, like the ingesting of it. You can actually work with plant medicine by simply being with it. It's being with the consciousness of that plant, that tree, that herb, the fruit, the flower. And the consciousness really wants to merge with us and tell us the sacred story of what secrets it holds. And for me, I've always been very drawn to nature. And from the time I can remember when I was little, I love being out walking in it. And I've always had a very, very deep connection to trees. Like when I walk past a tree, it's like, I have to touch it. I have to sit up against it. And at that time, I didn't realize that I was connecting with the consciousness of the tree. I didn't realize that sitting with it, if I leaned up against it, it was actually connecting to my chakras and my energy and recalibrating me. So like, think about like how you feel when you walk around barefoot on the ground. You spent the day at the beach. When you come inside after a day outside with nature, you feel so grounded, you feel so clear. And when you're connecting with plant medicine, be it working with flower essence, be it holding it in your hand, all you're doing, you're simply connecting your energy to its energy, and you're allowing the energetic imprints to start to yours. And so when I work with plant medicine, it's like, I look at it as like the plant consciousness is starting to fill in the gaps or connect to dormant DNA within our body that triggers a remembrance, and it starts to tell us a story. And the thing with plant medicine is there's no right way or wrong way to connect with it. It's your way. And I think that's what's beautiful about working with plant medicine. You are the bridge to the consciousness that it wants to bring. And so your role is really important. And the plant and you create this beautiful space. I always think of it kind of like a triangle, like the Holy Trinity. Here's you, here's the plant. Now what's going to be created once you merge your union together?
Oh, I love this analogy. It's so beautiful. And I love how there are so many different ways we can work with plants, not just, as you said, with ingesting them or like applying them on us or using essential oils, but by taking flower essences, by just like thinking about them and connecting with them. Just so many ways we can start using plants for healing. And what are some of the ways that we can benefit by using plant medicine? What can it help us with?
Well, when you work with plant medicine, so like I'll talk about cacao, because cacao is one that I connect with every single day. So I was introduced to ceremonial cacao about 3 years ago. And for me, I'm always a seeker. So I'm always curious about anything. And for me, the best way to understand how something works on my physiology, my emotional, my mental, my energetic body is for me to actually be the experiencer. Like reading books, listening to podcasts. Those are all great. It's beautiful information. But for me, in order to integrate it, I need to experience it. So about 3 years ago, I kept hearing about cacao, and I was like, okay, like, what is this? I see cacao in the grocery stores. It's the same thing. Once I started to research it and read about it, I was like, oh, there's actually a really big difference between what you find in the grocery store versus getting ceremonial grade. And then I found a company that kind of crossed my path. They're called Cacao Ceremony. I'm not affiliated with them. I just really like them. I really liked the way that they did everything. It was very ethical. They were very, they talked about the ceremony practices, how it's been around for many, many, thousands of years with indigenous people and ceremonies. So working with cacao was my first introduction of really working with a deep plant medicine. And for me, cacao is very motherly. And so when you work with cacao, it can feel different in your body based on what regions or areas it comes from. But typically for me, cacao is very heart expansive. So it really opens up your heart to that field of energy where everything is connected. It taps you back in to that sacred heart space where we are able to relate and understand emotional intelligence, our emotions, to that connection with people. And so when I work with cacao, it just really drops me in and I feel connected to like everything. And as you work with different plant medicines, they can help with different things. I mean, they totally help on a deep cellular level. And what I love about working with plants, and be it either fruits or vegetables, so it's really cool, is if you hold like a fruit and you hold it in your hands and you just pause for a few minutes and just breathe, you let the energy essence, the imprints of that fruit, let's say it's an apple, connect with yours. And as you connect, it's like the apple, the energy of the apple reads your energy and knows how to nourish you. And so I think that's really cool, is when they're so intelligent. So it will know what you need based on what the cells, the energy of your body is calling for. Even if you, like up here, logically think you know what you need, it's like the energy of your body, your soul, the chakras, everything knows what you need on a deeper cellular somatic level. And so when you work with plants, it's so interesting. It's like they know how to specifically work with your body. Same thing when you're working with essential oils. When you work with an essential oil, you rub it on your hands, you inhale it, maybe you apply it to a certain part of the body. The energetics of an essential oil are unlike, let's think when you take like aspirin, well, it disperses all over the body. It just goes everywhere. Where an essential oil has an intelligence where it's like, oh, she has an ache here or she has a blockage here. It knows how to navigate and go to that area and work in that one specific area or areas of the body instead of just going everywhere within the body. And so to me, working with plant medicine, when you work with it, the moment that you connect to it energetically, you're going to form a really beautiful relationship with the energy of it. And it's going to bring you whatever healing, upliftment, releasing, whatever it is that you need, the moment that you start to work with and introduce it. It's your own sacred relationship with that plant medicine.
Wow, it sounds like we can use plant medicine for both physical, emotional, mental, spiritual aspects. And it's basically a holistic kind of modality that we can use for healing, for transformation. And since you mentioned cacao, I want to talk about my cacao experience that has been quite recent. I recently started taking cacao flower essence from a company called Lotus Way. Again, I'm not affiliated. I just love their products and I'm a customer. And basically every single month you get to work with a different flower and allow its vibration and essence to work its magic on your aura. And this month we've been working with cacao. And at the same time, I've been guided to take cacao as like a beverage every single evening. And I've noticed how each type of cacao substance I'm using works on different aspects of me. When I'm drinking the cacao, it works on a very physical level and I can feel this motherly, nourishing energy that it brings within me. Whereas when I'm taking the flower essences, I feel the energy of the cacao flower working on the subtle energies of my aura and bringing up to the surface thought forms and emotions and limiting beliefs that I have around nourishment, being mothered, and just taking care of my basic needs, it brings them up to the surface so that I can heal them. So it's just fascinating how we can work with so many different facets of a specific plant, the flower, the fruit, the product, and consume it in different ways and have so much, allow so much healing and transformation to happen within us. It's just incredible. I've always believed that all the answers we seek are in nature. And each time I'm talking with someone who believes the same and teaches about that, I'm like, oh my goodness, let's talk even more. Let's educate the world as to how we can work with nature for healing. Now, you already mentioned a few practices, but let's get deeper. What are some practices, practical ways that people listening right now or watching can use to start connecting with the energy of plants and flowers?
Mm-hmm. So like the number one thing that I always will invite people into is get outside in nature, bare feet, connect to the subtle hum of the earth. Like that, like right there, like when you're connecting your bare feet to the earth, that is medicine in itself. So get out there and connect to the earth. Like for me, it's very important and it's part of my everyday practice to show up and to sit outside. I walk around barefoot as much as I can. I buy sandals that are earthing sandals. So when I'm walking around, like I'm still getting that energy. And another like way to start working with plant medicine, a really simple way, like if you want to slowly introduce, is to work with therapeutic grade essential oils. That's a really, really great way, an easy way to slowly start to work with them. So maybe you want to start with something that's more common, like lavender. Okay, work with lavender. Okay, you know, lavender is soothing, it's relaxing. They talk about lavender being the Swiss Army knife of oils because it's used for so many different things, like, you know, things on the physical, things with skin, on the mental, on the emotional, on the ethereal levels, the way that it makes you feel. That's great to know that, but experiment with how it makes you feel. Like, yes, okay, Nichol said it does this, but when you use it, what does it do for you? Because maybe it does something different for you on your energy levels, the way it relaxes your body, the way it, you know, creates something for, you know, your mindset, your mental capacity. And that's the way I always tell people, like, yes, like people talk about, you know, if you use it, it's for this or this, but I always encourage people to play with it. Be curious. How does it make you feel? Really detach yourself from like what my experience is. Let it be a guidepost for you, but don't let it be the only truth that you see. Because I think we get kind of caught up in that mindset, that mind chatter, like, oh, okay, well, George said this. I didn't feel it this way. It's not working for me. And that's simply not true. Maybe your relationship is different than mine and George's. And I think that's really important. So essential oils, really great. Bringing plants into your house, that's a really great way to start working with the energy vibration of plants. When you have plants or flowers in your house, it really creates a synergy of energetics in your house. It really uplifts the environment. So that's another great way to connect with it. When you're walking, touch a tree, place your hand on a tree, really connect to the energy of a tree. There's so many different ways, like when you're preparing your food, hold your food for just a little bit longer, connect your energy to that vegetable's energy, really send blessings and gratitude to it, let it connect to yours. So then that way, when you're cooking it, and I'm very conscientious when I'm cooking food, when I'm preparing cacao, whatever energy we show up with when we're preparing something that we're going to ingest, we're going to be ingesting that energy. So whenever I am preparing my cacao specifically, because that's a very sacred moment for me when I do my daily cacao, I never want to show up to it feeling rushed or frazzled, because I'm like, I don't want to drink that energy. So I prepare my space. Maybe I light some incense, I play music that I really like, and I'm really lovingly, intentionally creating that alchemizing drink that I'm going to be ingesting with cacao. And that's another great way when you're working with plants, plant medicine, you're connecting with your oils and things like that. It's, what is the energy flow that you're showing up with? How are you feeling? And, you know, if you're doing anything, for me, working with plants is a very sacred moment, like using essential oils is a daily part of my routine. It's something that I look forward to. It's a I get to, it's not a I have to. So I show up with that energy. And if I find myself rushing, just slapping oils on, I'm like, okay, like this is totally defeating the purpose. You're not even connecting to what you're doing in this moment. Nichol, slow down. You have 5 minutes. Take those 5 minutes, slow down, connect to the plant, connect to your body, connect to your intention with it. So those are just some really simple ways. Essential oils, connecting with nature, earthing, touching trees, bringing plants inside, connecting with your food. Those are all really beautiful ways to start working with plant consciousness and its energy.
I love it. And the biggest message I'm getting from this is don't depend too much on all the trainings and the information out there and the teachers teaching about that, but giving ourselves permission to let the plants speak to us and communicate the way they want to work with our energy, because as you've just said, we're all different, and therefore we relate to different plants and different energies in different ways. I think that is a powerful message, and part of the transition we're going on collectively as a humanity right now, where we're learning to depend less on others for like empowerment, and starting to find all that within ourselves. Now, what if we cannot go out in nature? We don't have essential oils. We don't know, we don't have the physicality of plants in our presence. Can we still connect and benefit from plant medicine?
Yeah, totally. I think so. Like, I took a course on herbalism and working with flower essences and things like that. And one of the things that we talked about was, if you can't physically connect to a plant, have it inside, you can actually draw a picture of a plant, of a tree. And, you know, you can make it as detailed as you want. It's just the actual act of drawing it. And then you connect with it. You just like hold it in your hands and close your eyes and connect. That's one way. And another way to really, that I love connecting, that I feel like still gives you the benefits, the healing, the connection, is going through maybe a visualization meditation or a shamanic journey, where you're actually seeing yourself and you bring in all of your senses. You bring in your sense of smell, your sense of taste. What do you see? What do you feel? How does this feel on your skin? You bring in your body. You're not leaving your body out of it when you're going into that journey space. You're bringing it with you. You're putting yourself into the energetics of that visualization, of that journey, placing yourself in a beautiful place in nature. Maybe it's a place you've never been before. Maybe it's super ethereal. It's filled with fairies, you know, dragons, unicorns, and plants, and so many of the elements. And you sit there. Like, I have a sacred space that I go to when I just need my cup recharged. I find myself sinking there. I can hear the waterfall. I sit there and I receive whatever it is that I need. So those are two really great, easy ways, even though you may be like, well, how does this work? It's the power of intention behind everything is so potent and so powerful. So draw the picture of the flower, the tree, the plant, connect, or do a, you know, a journey, a shamanic journey, or a guided visualization, or your own, where you see yourself in a beautiful place in nature that you've been before, or maybe you let your imagination go wild. You create the most fantastic, whimsical, ethereal space of everything that you want to connect with. And I know that you love connecting with mermaids and dragons and fairies. And so, like, to me, I love doing that too. And so that feels really good. So those are two really easy ways to do it if you don't have access to those things we've been talking about.
It's really powerful when we use our intention and realize that we are connected to it all. So we don't really need to go out there and connect, although it's beneficial and we're going to get so much from it, but we can stay in the comfort of our own house. And with our intention, we can expand our consciousness and make a connection, and therefore benefit from the energy of plants. Oh my goodness, Nichol, thank you so much for sharing all these powerful tools with us. I've learned so much, and so I'm sure everybody listening and watching. Where can people get in touch with you and work with you?
I'm most active on Instagram. So if they want to connect with me on Instagram, it's all lowercase. It's Nichol, Nichol _Altman, ALTMAN. Or you can connect with me on my website, which is www.nicholaltman.com. And you can also find me on my podcast, the Soulfully Awakened podcast. I put a lot of free content out there. Going to be having George on my podcast as well here soon. Figure that out. But yeah, those are the three easiest, most common ways. I'm most active on Instagram and my podcast. But if you want to read anything about the services that I'm offering, any new content that I'm putting together, my website is the way to go. And you can also contact me through my website.
And of course, we'll include all the links in the show notes below. Nichol, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun, George.